Alright, hello and welcome everybody. This is the 4th Dawn of War 2 Daily. I am 5-star General.
And I'm Lord Lokgar.
And so we're actually going back to the replay we were at yesterday. We're paused at 5 seconds in. You see actually that I have the little UI open in the top left so we can see how much time is there. That's because we have about 3 stopping points planned today. We're going to stay rather shortly at each one. We're not planning on staying for an hour at one talking point. Sorry about that, guys. We're working our best to plan this. Unfortunately, there's no group replay functionality, so we've really got to do a lot more planning in advance. We figured that out yesterday. We've done it today. We hope this is going to be better. So today's focus is going to be on power. So this replay was really interesting. It was a great replay between CC13 and Aki. So we felt we wanted to go back to it and kind of focus on just a different point of view for evaluating the replay.
Yesterday we focused a lot on the requisition, and we explained the requisition mechanics, which is what 5-star is referring to in that 45-minute pause we had. But today we're going to be looking at the power mostly, and we're trying to teach you guys the basic resources of the game and how to acquire them and best ways to maximize your profit from both these resources.
And, just exactly how they play in and kind of how to feel out your opponent too, because it's really important, especially in like 1v1, even in other modes too. That's one of the great things about Dawn of War 2, is that even in 2v2 and 3v3 you can still get the economy and stuff still matters as far as you relative to your opponent. So we're all stopped here. We're going to get going right away. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the power portion of this. You guys ready? Let's go in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And like we said, we saw this replay yesterday, and for those who weren't here yesterday, Aki is playing the Space Marines, the Apothecary. He's a healer type hero, and then CC13 is playing the Warlock as Eldar, and it's sort of like a spell casting damage dealer melee combat specialist.
Yeah, he's very good at supporting supporting spell casting. He's got an array of both damage dealing ones and then also like channeling runes and cloaking shroud and stuff like that. So he's got kind of a mix of things that he can do, and then he's also got Swift Movement, which is a really interesting global. But here we see he's using Fleet of Foot to go down to that bottom victory point. We saw that the first really interesting thing here for power-wise is that CC13 has gone for 2 power nodes. I kind of consider this the equivalent to like a rapid expansion in a game like StarCraft or something. You don't get as much power by taking 2 nodes. So he took his natural node down here. We defined natural yesterday, which is the easiest point for the player to hold, right? And then this other node, which is kind of in the middle, it's much more contestable, but he goes ahead and fortifies that. Lokgar, I think you can definitely expand a lot more on the fortification part of this.
Oh yeah, it's always really, really handy to fortify your points in that an enemy will send maybe even just a lone capping squad to the power node thinking it's secured, because many people do not secure power nodes past the natural one, which they will load generators onto, and they'll be there and they'll just be shooting at the node without actually capturing it, and that's lost time right there, which could be used capturing another point that's open and whatnot. It does give you more line of sight, so you're able to see what exactly is hitting your power node, so you can respond with the appropriate forces or just ignore it and go around capping the rest of the map.
Yeah, and then the other thing, like as I mentioned, I feel it's kind of an expansionary thing, because you can actually now build power generators on this node. So if you're confident you can hold this, as CC13 is doing pretty well so far, that allows you, even though you don't get quite as much in the beginning, although we see that actually with that attack on the main power farm of Aki by CC13 there, CC13 actually has more power incoming now, because this generator is only +10. This node without a fortification is +5. Though actually, Aki just pulled ahead because of capturing this up here. Capturing lone power points is big too as well, guys. So don't forget to do that. Those are still important, but the fortifications generators are pretty big too. But I was getting at the little interesting thing about the nodes is actually that we see here that this is +9. This is +9. This is going to be +10. base income is plus 10, and yet somehow CC13 has plus 29. Really should be plus 28 if you just look at these plus 9s here and go, well, this should be it, right? Should be plus 9, that's 18, and then plus 10, my bad, for the base, which should be 28. Now this should be plus 10, so now he's got 39. Somehow, though, he's getting 39. It should be 38. And basically, the thing that we're thinking is that actually this is the power node supply 4.5. So if you go with this kind of 2-node approach, you're able to get the equivalent of an upgraded fortified node here and 1 generator. So this is a little bit more defensive style play. This is a little more aggressive, even though you are spending more on it. You spend 125 requisition on a node, and you spend only 100 on a power generator. So you spend a little bit extra to do that.
And we see ASM's engaging the Banshees, and there is 1 model loss. That is, I believe, 8 power.
Yep.
If I heard you told me correctly what you did.
Yeah, it's 8 power for each Assault Space Marine squad model that goes down.
But going back to that 5 power for just a captured power point without a node on it, 5 power per minute is basically making up for that model loss right there. It was only 8. And if Aki can manage to keep his power reinforcement costs low during Tier 1, having an extra unupgraded power node is very useful.
Now this is really dangerous here at these Rangers. He's going to lose a model there. And again, this is going to cost 5 power for CC13 to reinforce. You really have to be very careful about what units cost power in Tier 1 for you, and how you use them, because when you take attrition losses, when you have to reinforce power units, it will delay your teching speed, because it cuts into your power income. Basically, is, you know, we talked about the whole idea yesterday with requisition about how you have like revenue and profit, right? And revenue is everything you're taking in, and then profit is only that which you can spend on tech and new units and stuff like that. Well, like with power, you're generally looking for tech and you know, new units and, you know, stuff like that, right? So when you have stuff that decreases your profit, that's not good, right? So that's basically what happens every time you take attrition losses. So you got to be really careful with these kind of units, with the Shuriken that uses power, this Ranger that uses power, and these Assault Space Marines that use power.
Another thing that we didn't mention yesterday, which I think it's important to mention, the fact that the Apothecary is able to heal these low model, high HP squads very effectively is really helpful in this war of attrition that we've been talking about. Because if his ASMs are about to lose a model, that's, again, 8 power, but if he can just heal them back up to full combat potential, allowing them to inflict possibly more casualties upon the Eldar army, which, if he goes after a power squad, would force CC13 to spend more power to reinforce his squads, while Aki has spent no extra power to keep his ASMs out on the field.
Yeah. And so we're coming up here right on 623, which is our first stopping point, which is actually slightly early. Okay, so actually we've got, the reason why we're stopping right here is we're going to take a look at power. We were talking before about how all of this kind of builds in, and we've got CC13 at 125 power.
With 10 more power income than Aki, with that 1 power node just being upgraded since the beginning of the game.
And 125 power is a significant figure for CC13.
In that he can tech up now. Costs 300 requisition, 125 power to get up to Tier 2. But as we'll see when we unpause the game, CC13 doesn't actually hit the tech up button yet, which will allow Aki in our second pause zone to, that's what he starts teching up a full 7 seconds earlier than him. At 650.
So we'll go over those times again, you know, later. But basically, right now, if CC13 begins his tech now, he will tech 27 seconds. He will reach Tier 2 27 seconds earlier than Aki will possibly be able to. And now at the moment, we actually see that Aki is building the Scout Squad, and that is bringing his requisition down really, really low. We can see he's only got plus 258 per minute, so it would actually be more than a minute on the requisition front that he'd be able to tech. But we're going to see Aki do something really interesting in a little bit, so we're going to focus on that too. But, you know, on the power front of this, you know, we can just look, and it would be 27 seconds. It's 27 seconds that CC13 could do some really interesting stuff in there. So now, we want to look really quickly at the power expenditures here in Tier 1, because by this point, basically all of it is done. So we just want to go over that really quickly because we feel, again, that's important. You want to have a rough idea of how much you're spending in Tier 1, whether that's a light Tier 1 or a heavy Tier 1. If it's a light Tier 1, you don't necessarily need to worry as much about your opponent's power income. If it's a heavy Tier 1, you probably do, because your opponent may well beat you to Tier 2. So we saw that CC13 is going to... his planned expenditure was 110 power. 30 power for these Rangers, 15 power on the battle equipment,
15 on the aspect of the Banshees.
25 actually.
No way. 25. My bad.
Yeah, they upgraded the cost in Chaos Raising. The Rangers also have 10 for Pathfinder. I said 30 to start with in the Shuriken. So all that adds up to 110. Then we have that one Ranger model. So that's an extra 5 power. So that's where we're getting 115 from. So that's relatively heavy, but not too much. Actually, that's maybe on the heavier side of average.
I'd say that's about average, but many races require about that much power.
Yeah, I think what makes this kind of interesting is that there's no war gear involved in it. So maybe that's what makes it seem a little heavier than it actually is. On Aki's side, we have a rather light, actually, Tier 1, because we only have this Assault Space Marines costing 50 power, and the Shotgun Scouts costing 15 power. So in total, that's 65 power. He did lose one Assault Space Marine, as we mentioned. That's kind of a big loss. That's 8 power. So that brings Aki up to 73 power. Still, though, he only spent about maybe 2/3, 3/4 as much power as CC13. But that's why one of the reasons why we saw the CC13 go for this aggressive power build, where we want to go and capture this, this node up there in front, and to kind of build up that full power farm, and then to also, again, we kind of mentioned earlier that you've got to keep tabs on your opponent. CC13 knew that he's going, average power, but maybe Aki wouldn't be going average power. Maybe he even knew something about what Aki would be doing. Maybe he has some kind of metagame. Maybe been watching replays, whatever. Either way, he's really been hitting Aki's gen farm pretty hard, really hitting that node every single chance he's gotten. We see he's doing it again right now.
Yeah, and really, he spent 110 power. He really needs to try to deny Aki power, because he only did spend 65, I think we...
Yeah, 65 and then 73 when you count attrition in.
Yeah, and as we'll see, Aki does actually get to Tier 2 faster, as we've already stated.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get this rolling again. We're going to stop pretty shortly, but so let's get it rolling in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I do like the constant pressure from CC13, though. He definitely had the heavier Tier 1 investment, and if he just pushed that advantage in Tier 2, he might have been able to turn this game around.
Yeah, a total side note there, I've mentioned that Scout Squad. I kind of moused over for you guys while Lokgar was talking. You basically saw that Scout Squad was coming out, and right as it was coming out, right as it was coming out, Aki canceled it. Why would Aki do that? The reason why Aki would do that, or my opinion is, number one, he obviously felt that he could have needed the squad, so that's why he queued it up, number one. But he forced the Banshees off, so that could have been one of the reasons why he's like, okay, I don't need the Scout Squad right now, I forced the Banshees off my power, that's safe. But this kind of rolls into, for whatever reason he had it there, he realized that with that Scout Squad being built, right, he wouldn't have enough requisition to tech Tier 2. Aki has recognized that his opponent, despite, maybe how much he's spent, right now CC13 is at 667 requisition and 151 power, which basically means that CC13 is at a stage of the game where he could easily have tech to Tier 2, right? He should be already 27 seconds into Tier 2. We kind of mentioned that before. So Aki doesn't know I'm sure he doesn't know the numbers of this at this point, right? But he certainly has the awareness to recognize, I need to get to Tier 2 in order to deal with CC13's Tier 2. He wants to get to Tier 2, he wants to do that.
Right, and I think also Aki he knew that he didn't get a Gen Bastion, so he wanted to get up to Tier 2 as soon as possible, because he assumed CC13 would already be near there.
Yeah, and definitely when you see that this node is even this that forward node, right, that we saw CC13 put down at the beginning of the game, that's still up. So really, Aki hasn't done anything to CC13's power all game, and that's usually a pretty good indicator that your opponent is teching on their terms, and you want to get to tier 2 as soon as you can. But I really like the concept, though, especially, you know, if you can pull it off. It's kind of one of those things that may be a little dangerous, but it's something interesting to kind of just toy around with in your mind. To have like a squad, right? Could be useful if you get it out, but like maybe like you just kind of like have it building, right? And then you're like, okay, I could use a squad, but I'm not really sure. You know, I don't really need it. Maybe I'll figure out if I need it, you know, when it's near done, right? And you have it training, you're doing whatever, and then you figure out, okay, do I need the squad? Like right almost as it finishes building, you decide, no, cancel it. Nothing lost, right? Unless you had to build something else at that time, but Aki had nothing else to build at this time, right? Basically, he's either building resources to tech up to tier 2, or he's sitting there and waiting for that squad to finish. You know, otherwise there's nothing else he would be doing. So, you know, in a situation like that, it's kind of great. It gives him this awesome flexibility to either increase his ability to hold out in tier 1, right? If he's getting, like for example, let's say he saw a new squad from CC13, a new tier 1 squad, right? Then all of a sudden he'd be like, okay, CC13 probably isn't teching tier 2 right now, so I can go ahead and get that scout, and that actually is exactly what I need. And now, instead of waiting like 20 seconds or whatever for that scout is already ready, it's already out. But then if I don't want it, you know, if I didn't want it, maybe I didn't, you know, like this time, you know, in this game, he didn't see anything that warranted the scout, he just wanted to get tier 2, he just canceled it right on time. Gotta watch it though, because if you wanted to cancel it, and you know, you can't, and you know, you forget about it. You've got that squad, it's upkeep, and you lost all the requisition you put into it too. So.
Also, just to point out, his assault squad did lose 2 members during that last engagement, and they're on their way to retreat. Canceling that scout squad is allowing him to get a little bit of a head start on the reinforcement cost for one of those models, as well as allowing him to get to tier 2 at the same time.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Anyway, I believe we are about ready to unpause.
Yeah, one really quick thing before unpause I want to point out is, for me anyway, it's paused with Aki with 75 requisition and 0 power, and tier 2 has started. Like, I'm just going to sit here and say, oh my gosh, Aki, oh my gosh, you are a god. Kind of. You know, it actually is one of those things where usually, you know, you won't see it. You'll see maybe like 1 power there or something, but to actually have it go down literally exactly on 125 is really, really good. Especially because it's not like there weren't other things going on, too.
And, possibly, I think 76 is already enough to reinforce a member of the assault squad, correct?
Sorry?
Is 76 requisition enough to reinforce a member of the assault squad?
Yeah, I think it is enough to reinforce... No, I should think they're 80-something, the low 80s. 83, I believe.
By the time it retreats, he'll have enough.
He will have enough, yeah.
Yeah.
So he'll be able to get 1 member out. We'll actually watch that reinforcement process if you want, so you can go ahead and get that rolling then.
Yep. Go ahead with the countdown.
Alright, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So here we go. And we can see,
he does get the requisition for it, but will he get the power? And yeah, he gets the power just at the right time.
Just in time there. Let me see, great timing there. Yeah, but it's 83 requisition and 8 power. So again, we see that Aki is having some, utilizing some really nice, tight macro management here. We see, we actually did kind of have another stop plan. We're just going to skip it. The stop was basically that CC13 is going tier 2 finally. He
7
did it.
seconds later.
Yeah.
Then Aki.
Yeah, so he ended up going 7 seconds later. Not too much, but basically, it's not going to advantage CC13 much at the moment. But the bigger issue for CC13 is he threw away his own potential advantage.
Right, and 27 seconds into teching up to tier 2, you'll see what kind of amazing advantage Aki gets just being 7 seconds early. And, I mean, 27 seconds early is almost enough time to get the resources needed to pull out a transport vehicle, or maybe even a walker if you had enough stockpiles, which I'm sure CC13 did in the requisition front at least.
Yeah, he's a little low on power for that kind of thing, and unfortunately, I guess that is the one thing with Eldar is that the Falcon is like 95 power, so like their lowest cost vehicle even is pretty high up there. But still, there are a lot of things in Tier 2. Like, for example, with Aki, I think we're going to see the Sergeant come in on these Assault Space Marines pretty quickly, or we're going to see a Razorback, one of the two. We're going to watch on the bottom right here for a Razorback training that's going to be cancelled pretty soon. Right here. Goes down, cancels it. Aki not decisive on what he wants to do here. Would have been pretty good timing for getting that Razorback out, and as we saw yesterday, right, because we did this game yesterday, that Razorback was really huge in helping him turn things around. But watch this battle here.
It did like the assault jump onto the Banshees to cause the knockback, allowing the scouts to get in. And he retreats just in the right time so he doesn't incur any assault marine losses, which, again, saves him some power, especially since he only has 92 power. Right now, an 8 power loss would prevent him from getting that Razorback at this timing right now.
Yeah, but we do see that the Razorback is building now, but the problem I have with all this is the Razorback takes 40 seconds to build, right? So it's not one of those things where, okay, I have the resources for it, boom, comes out instantly. Nah, it takes some time to get out, and we're seeing that during this time, I'm not sure, I want to do the calculations on this, but unfortunately I didn't quite have enough time for that. But he may have been able to get the Razorback out with such timing that it would have prevented losing this power node here.
Also, very important to note right now, since we're on the issue of reinforcing with power costs, the Banshee squad just lost their Exarch, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is still a 25 power investment, and basically
15, I think.
15 now.
Or
okay.
It's 15 or it's 15 or 25. It's one of those two. I know that Eldar are a little cheaper squad leader wise, but the Banshee might be. Cursed real time. Go ahead.
Yeah. Regardless, squad leaders are essentially an extra model, extra super strong model that you get, but they also cost some sort of power and requisition costs. And every time that model dies, you have to pay that same exact cost.
It's 15 power, by the way.
Okay, 15 power, which can get very expensive. 15 power on a single model is quite a bit.
Yeah, it really will impact your purchasing decisions for a lot of other things.
Also, many abilities that snipe single models you can actually target the specific model. So you'll see many players targeting Exarchs and squad leaders and such just to cause that power drain.
And speaking of power drain here, those Assault Space Marines just got really ravaged up there. They lost their Sergeant, and they lost 2 other regular models, so that's going to be a lot that Aki is going to have to replace to get them back up and running. We see that the Sergeant for Assault Space Marines is 25 power and 100 requisition, and that isn't even getting into what the regular members cost.
Also, squad leaders sometimes give abilities to the squad, like Melt-A-Bombs for the Assault Squad, which are anti...
No, the Melt-A-Bombs actually are their own upgrade, but you get Merciless Strike with the squad leader.
Man, I am just behind everything right now. I truly apologize. But Banshee Exarchs get light AV damage, because with the aspect of the Banshee they get Executioner, but if the Exarch doesn't exist, they don't have the light AV damage. So say a Razorback's being attacked, if you have an ability that can be used to snipe the Exarch, like Tech Marines...
high-powered shot?
High-powered shot, that is it. Which deals massive damage to a single target. Use it and protect your vehicle while inflicting power damage. 15 power damage and 75 requisition, is it, or is it in the hundreds?
For the
Banshee Exarch.
I think it's 85 requisition for Banshee Exarch. It's 100 requisition for Aspect though, so together it's a fair expenditure. But yeah, you can snipe you can't snipe Aspect.
And here we see even more gen bashing from CC13, which is really required when you expend that much in Tier 1. And we do see this Razorback being used really well, actually, just for being a transport. Usually, transport vehicles are overlooked in many matches, but the Razorback in this match is used devastatingly to cause wreck bleed and power drain on the Warp Spider squad, since every time you reinforce one of them, they cost a lot of power.
Now we do see that CC13 is going Tier 3, so this does seem to be that this Gen Bash down here seems to be, wants to prevent Aki from doing the same. So he wants to go ahead and get in there unopposed. But we do see Aki here is more concerned with victory points because he's down to 46, which is really, really low.
Now, I think we can go ahead and say this. If you look at CC13's requisition, he has 500. That's enough for a full another gen farm on his power node that was upgraded since the beginning of the game. He sees Aki has 46 victory points, so he knows Aki should be playing defensively, and he is playing very defensively. He could have felt confident enough to build another power farm, at least one or two more generators, which would allow him to get out the heavy tier 3 units a lot quicker than just teching up and then having to wait for one power farm to get that power necessary.
Yeah, I kind of keep switching back and forth between the main battle here and that forward power farm that Lokgar is talking about, because this was actually just upgraded with a fortified node, like right before CC13 tech tier 3. But he really had an opportunity to upgrade that node and then even put a generator or two on there long ago, and he probably would have been in tier 3 when Lokgar started talking about that.
Yeah, and we see a D cannon coming out, which is 40 power, so he's not going for that very expensive tier 3 units just yet, but with that extra power generator, he might have been able to pull out a fire prism, which would have done nicely against this Razorback.
And the assault space marines too, just causing the knockback and whatnot.
Yeah, the
made
knockback
a little bit more mobile and less vulnerable to the being jumped on by them. Sure, they have meltas and such, but meltas require some kind of follow-up.
Indeed, also D cannon guardians cause power to reinforce, so they're easy targets to cause some sort of drain with assault marines.
And we do see that CC13 had a pretty good stockpile. He's still doing really well on power. Actually, he's doing so well on power at this point that it's almost not worth mentioning. We can kind of see that Aki is he's even got his tac squad just going to the bottom here to capture his victory point in this requisition node. He's not even focusing on any kind of gen bash at this point. He's just seeding the power game with CC13. He's doing something really smart right now. He's got the top of the map controlled for himself because he has to control those top 2 victory points, right? So he's not even bothering with his natural requisition power, right? Or, my bad, natural power, not natural requisition power. I don't know what in the world that would be. But what he is focusing on is he's got his this top power node there, and he just has one fortified node on it, and he's got one generator on it. That's only plus 29 power total, but, he's got no plans to go to tier 3. He's just trying to sustain his current force. And eventually I think he's going to get a Devastator or possibly a Plasma Devastator, and he's got enough power for what he wants. He doesn't need to do much else.
Yeah, just a quick note, the Angels of Death, we had a little bit of a discussion about what Angels of Death does. I was hovering over the Assault Marine squad when it had activated and taking fire from Warp Spiders and a Singularity, didn't lose any HP. Yeah. So I do believe it just gives them invulnerability.
Yeah, I was looking at that earlier today, and I do agree with you. I think that is what it is. I
do remember a bug where Immolate used to go through it, though. That was hilarious.
Yeah, that may have been why I was a little sketchy on it, because I think it went through, but you couldn't kill them. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where I got the idea from.
Yeah, I definitely remember something like that, though. Also, I do like what Aki is doing. He realizes his tacticals aren't really necessary to deal with CC13's main force. The double Assault Marines, the Razorback, and the Apothecary are enough. So he's leaving them to just guard the bottom requisition and victory point, and they are strong enough that they can handle any sort of lone capping squad that CC13 will send, because CC13 needs his Banshees, which are the direct counter to tacticals, to fight ASMs as well.
So right there we just saw what I was talking about yesterday with that jump that the Assault Space Marines made behind the Warp Spiders. They basically kind of, in the act of jumping, the second the Warp Spiders saw them jumping, they teleported somewhere else because, they don't want to be anywhere near where the Assault Space Marines are going to land and get knocked back, because that's just going to set them up for a lot of losses that CC13 and requisition side, none of this stuff is cheap requisition-wise either, and he doesn't have a ton of requisition right now. He does have more than enough power, but requisition-wise, he would probably like to have a little more. So, doing that kind of jump there so that they actually land behind them, leverage the fact that they're probably not going to actually hit the Warp Spiders on the jump because they're probably going to be microed well enough to prevent that. But then jumping somewhere where they'll hit where the Warp Spiders jump to next. Very nice little micro trick.
Yeah, and the Razorback finally goes down after causing so much damage. I believe the Banshee Exarch died, but when the Banshees retreated as well, he definitely got his power worth out of the Razorback.
Actually, it's just one of the regular Banshee models.
Ah, man, I thought, darn.
But he has lost his Exarch quite a few times, so there's no doubt in that. And, you know, he's really that Razorback has caused so much bleed on so many things. You know, from the Warp Spiders to the Exarch. I think a couple of times it's died.
Also, really important is the fact that Aki still hasn't built a full gen farm. Many players will rush to always keep a full generator farm up, but Aki realizes that he pretty much already spent all the power he needed to fight his battles with the AA Assault Marine squads. And so he's only building one to keep it up for reinforcement squads, reinforcement purposes, possibly just to upgrade as well. But just one generator, and that's all he needed. So he's saving 200 requisition for reinforcements when that time comes.
Yeah, as mentioned, like, you know, he doesn't seem to be caring about tier 3 at all. So most of what he's looking for right now is in tier 2. And for all, you know, most of that, he's just kind of looking at requisition mostly, and power isn't the biggest concern for him. So he really is managing his power intake well. You know, again, power economy is not necessarily all about just getting as much power as you possibly can. It's regulating how much you need, and, you know, you really gotta watch, okay, what resource do I need more, and then how do I make sure that I get more of that resource, you know, sooner.
Right, and I think that that's something that a lot of experience will come in handy. Just knowing when to stockpile requisition and knowing when to try to get power.
Yeah, and also just recognizing when it doesn't matter that your opponent has more power or more requisition or more of a certain kind of resource than you do, and recognizing when it's most important that you have what you need.
Yeah. So I believe we're gonna go into the Aki versus Soom show matches. We were gonna show game 1 or game 2 last night, but we ran out of time. So I think we're gonna go ahead and do both of those show matches again.
Yeah, we have like a full hour right now, so we should be able to get through those. We have no stopping points planned, so any of you guys not happy about those, then this is the place to be, and this is the time to be there. So let's go ahead and boot up the first one, because we did number 3 already.
Game 1 is on Ashes of Typhon. My apologies for cutting you off.
Oh, that's fine.
And Ashes of Typhon is a new map. It came out with Retribution, and it is a fairly big map. When we talk about natural requisition points, the one closest to your base, this one also, just like Leech's High Stratum, like we saw yesterday, the requisition and power nodes, the closest ones, are still a fair ways off from your base. And we'll see that really hamper Soom's ability to capture his base with the Hive Tyrant, who moves around very slowly. And you'll even see him, I believe in the chat, it's either in the post-game or during the game, he says the Hive Tyrant's too slow for this map. So just try to keep that in mind as you see the Hive Tyrant wandering around, trying to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, and then it's also noteworthy, before this is the first game in the show match series that we did for our first Dawn of War 2 daily last Friday. And Aki was being a little tricky before the game started, you know, in the lobby. He had first picked his race of Space Marines. We were all excited because he was like, you know, he didn't really want to play against Soom as Space Marines, which usually is his primary race. You know, we saw him playing as that against CC13. We really want to see him play against Soom with that. But he was like, no, I don't really want to do that. And then we saw him like, oh my gosh, he might do it. Then he switched over to Imperial Guard, and we're like, alright, that could still be awesome and fun. And then we start the countdown, and he switches over to Warp Spider Exarch. And Soom didn't realize that until he got in a game, I don't think. So we're going to see a little bit of Aki catching Soom slightly off guard here with this hero and race choice.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Soom even says in the game that, oh, you went Eldar?
Yeah. So let's get this started up in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Also, something interesting to make note of that Soom went dual Hormagaunts, which against most Eldar players he will go two Termagants, and I think it just relates back to the point that he thought that he was versing Imperial Guard.
Yeah, and you see right here it goes Eldar? Blah. So,
And yeah, so I mean, just like look how far away the requisition and power node is. It's very hard to try to defend them. It's very easy to ninja cap, and also that might be another reason why the dual Hormas is Soom's choice in the opening, because with the adrenal glands upgraded, they move very fast, and they're perfect for ninja capping as long as you're aware of where they are the whole game. And don't like not pay attention to them, because a quick grenade will kill your squad, which is a terrible loss, especially early or mid game.
yeah, we did see a lot of Aki trying to leverage grenades. So right here we have, on the bottom left VP, we got the Warp Spider doing quite a bit of harassment against these Hormagaunts. They're not really able to do too much, but they aren't just sitting there and taking the damage as we had seen. I believe we were watching Aki on Greentooth Gorge against Edtjuh. He kind of just let one of his squads sort of just sit there and take damage from the Warp Spider. Right here we see Soom be much more active about it, and at least forcing the Warp Spider to take some time before actually going to capture that point.
Yeah, going into the melee range was a good idea, because a lot of players will say don't engage the Warp Spider Exarch in melee with Gaunts. The special attack will really just trip them up, but if they're just capping a point, they're going to lose more models taking ranged fire. It's better to try to buy yourself some time and minimize your model losses by going after the Warp Spider Exarch if he is pretty close.
And we can already see actually that the Hive Tyrant for Soom has already taken a model off of Aki's Guardians, so requisition-wise, Soom has already kind of come out on top just in these initial encounters there, so losing that one Hormagaut model wasn't that much of an issue. By the way, for you, those in the chat asking why Lokgar's voice sounds a little it's he's a little sick still, right?
Yeah, I've been sick for the past week. I'm not too sure when I'm getting better. I resigned myself to the fate of perpetual sickness. I give myself to Lord Lokgar.
Doug will take you.
And we saw Soom traded quite a few Hormagaunt models for a generator. A lot of players will do this, and it really just comes down to the flow of the game to see if it's worth it to trade requisition for their power, to hurt the enemy's power income.
Well, remember, you also hurt the requisition income as well, because if they're going to replace that power generator, and we see it was immediately replaced by Aki, it does cost 100 requisition to replace. So actually, again, Soom came out on top of that one, taking only 3 Hormagaunt losses, which is going to be less than 100 requisition by far.
Yeah, it's usually a good idea to go for the generators unless you know you're going to lose the squad, honestly. But, I mean, this whole game, we mentioned this when we were actually live casting this, but this whole game, Aki's Warp Spider Exarch, I believe, is doing a good job for at least early game of harassing Soom's capping squads down here. That so-called natural requisition point that the Gaunts are capturing now, which actually is a little bit far off from the other ones, was actually fully matured for Aki until Soom was able to decap it, which is a pretty big requisition income from that point.
Yeah, and we do see, again, that Aki is doing a pretty good job with his Guardians at back capping. He's doing his best to make sure that he's got the economy to really kind of overcome Soom here. Soom doing a good job with his Raveners, though, forcing this Shuriken out. We do see 2 Shurikens are out from Aki, and we see that the second one there is able to protect that first Shuriken on its retreat, which is pretty huge. You know, he doesn't want to lose that squad, so...
And we do see a little bit of Gen Bash coming from Aki. Whether or not that's just because... no, wait, they don't auto-target generators.
No, they don't auto-target. They do auto-target the node, but not generators, so... He was kind of sitting there and trying to do something a bit, you know, with that there. He's working on getting his Guardians in a place where they can retreat safely, or maybe just kind of get back to the Warp Spider here. Yep, get back to the Warp Spider, allow the Warp Spider to inflict some losses on these Hormagaunts, although these Guardians taking much more. This is kind of a bit of a common theme I think we saw a little bit in this game here from Aki, is that he's going to let his Guardian squads get down to like 1 member out of 5, which is a pretty big attritional loss for Eldar. That's 30 requisition per guardsman to replace them, and at total that's 120 requisition.
Yeah, Gaunts under Synapse with the Adrenal Gland upgrade are excellent in chasing down models and killing them. As we saw in that last engagement with the Guardians, they were just trying to run away and retreat, but the Gaunts were fast enough that they were able to leap and keep killing models off. And under Synapse, they'll also leap over cover, which is sometimes very useful in being able to cut off enemies, because most enemies will have to run around the cover.
Yeah, and to explain quickly what Adrenal Glands is, it's a speed. It's an upgrade that gives them additional speed. I think it's like +1, so they go from, I believe, 5.5 to 6.5. And again, it gives them that charge leap, so it makes them much more effective chasers. So when they're trying to take out units on retreat, they're much more capable because of the speed and then that charge leap at actually catching up to them and doing damage and killing them. Especially because on retreat, units take additional melee damage, even though they take reduced range damage. So that's always something to remember. If you're retreating and you're taking melee damage, you're going to be taking more than you would if you weren't retreating.
And it's something significant, like 20 to 30%.
It's 30%, yep.
And then the Hormigaunt Adrenal Gland also increases the Hormigaunt health and the Hormigaunt damage.
Yeah, it's just a really nice all-around buff for them. For only about
15 power.
Yeah, and 65 requisition.
And we do see the Gaunt squad almost goes down with 4 HP left and 1 model. Soom has a healthy requisition stockpile though, so he should be able to reinforce that fully and still tech up to tier 2 on time.
Yeah, and we saw that these Guardians now have battle equipment down here, really causing some issues for the Raveners there. But in the meantime, the Hive Tyrant up in the top right was bashing away on a Shuriken, dealing some nice losses against that. Some expensive losses for Arcade to replace, again cutting into his power, which is quite low right now. And we saw the Hormagaunts were bashing on generators again, but Shuriken's able to force them off of that.
I do have a question, if you don't mind me asking. The Guardian Warlock only gives health now and doesn't have that passive damage decrease. Right?
I don't think he passively increases damage of the squad.
Decreases received damage. I know he used to. I'm pretty sure they removed that.
Yeah, I don't think he has a passive... Well, he's got a little aura coming at from, but I don't think he has it anymore, but he has Embolden, and Embolden is just really ridiculous for that. It makes Guardians one of the best, like, literally just one of the best tier 1 range squads in tier 2 sort of deal. So, you know, you have the activatable ability there, and then, you know, just the general awesomeness of the Warlock himself.
For those of you who don't know, Embolden increases damage from the Guardian squad by a significant amount.
It also breaks suppression, I believe, and has a couple of nice bonuses. I would say look them up on Dawn of War 2 info, but they're still working on getting the abilities up there. So that's one of the... Not meaning to make excuses for ourselves here, but, you know, do need to play, you know, check some things in-game a little bit more every now and then. But, you know, it is kind of nice to be able to look at Dawn of War 2 info, and we haven't quite been able to do that for any of these dailies yet.
And we see the Hormagaunts attacking the Guardians. There's the Embolden popped out. That's the yellow circle below the Guardians. That's how you know Embolden's been popped. And a nice
grenade dodge.
Yeah, a very good dodge, and also a fairly nice prediction trying to predict where the Gaunts are going. You notice he threw them right in front of them.
Yeah.
And if Soom wasn't paying attention, the squad would have been taking heavy losses.
Yeah, and by the way, Embolden does indeed give some kind of... I'm trying to remember exactly how much and what it is, but it does do some amount of... decreases the damage taken, which is why you saw Aki pop it there while he was getting hit on by the Hormagaunts. We do have the auto called in a bit at the same time. The grenades miss again. Soom doing a really good job staying on top of that. We actually saw grenades absolutely devastated Aki when he played against Edtjuh as Imperial Guard here. So, you know, we've certainly seen the power of grenades all around. So, you know, that Soom has been doing a great job of dodging them. It's certainly indicative of his performance and his ability to stay in this game and bash these generators up here.
Also, going back to the fact that units take more melee damage when they're retreating, Raveners still have fairly decent melee capabilities with the Devourer upgrade. In fact, I'm pretty sure it doesn't lower their range, their melee damage. It just changes the damage type.
It actually improves it, as I recall.
Right. It improves it to Sword PvP, which is the basic melee attack from Power Melee, which we'll get more into modifiers in a later episode. But basically, it does normal damage to most infantry targets, and it does more. So you have a fast squad that can be used in range to deal a lot of damage, upfront damage when the squad is not retreated. And then, if it's close enough, force melee to get a few more model kills off the squad while it's retreating.
Yeah, and then just also it's got the burrow ability, so it's great for disruption too. Meantime, we see that a warrior brood has been called down. It's a global ability for the hype turret. Pay just a little bit of requisition and some red, aka global resource, and you get to call those down wherever you want to.
Yeah, and basically what that does for the warrior brood is usually 300 requisition, 30 power. Now, he doesn't have to spend that power resource, so he's able to upgrade the warrior squad into either Adrenal Glands or Barbed Strangler right off the bat, in what would have been the cost for a vanilla warrior squad.
Although we do see that he is holding off from that currently, so he may just be looking for some basic functionality use from them, or he may actually be looking. He's kind of a little low on requisition right now, so he may be looking to use that requisition for something else. But he did get a pretty nice kill off with his Gene Stealers on the Warp Spider Exarch, so he's certainly going to. Aki's requisition is quite low at the moment as well, as is his power.
Yeah, and let's see, the Hive Tyrant will get away with plenty of health. And nice retreat on the warrior brood right there. He saw those amount of forces, but a nice nade spike on retreat kills 2 models. If Aki had not been on top of his game, the warrior brood would have gotten away without any model losses, but now he inflicted enough damage that 2 models is quite a significant amount of resources to devote to reinforcing, and the extra time to just heal that 1 model, because high HP, low model count squads spend a lot of time in HQ re-healing up.
Yeah,
before they can go back into battle.
On the other side, though, we had Shuriken go down for Aki, and we had quite a few other losses, and quite a couple of model losses on Warp Spiders as well, so quite a successful endeavor over there. He did lose Soom lost one of his Hormigaunt squads in the process, but it did seem to be quite well worth it, though, for what he got out of it. And his Raveners were able to kind of continue bashing up top and just causing problems all around.
Yeah, and here we see them just delaying and distracting Aki's army while the rest of his army reinforces and heals up, trying to buy some time before they can go out in the field and try to prevent them from doing too much map control damage.
And we do see they lose 1 model each, which is pretty significant. Raveners cost a fair bit to reinforce.
And now we see the Adrenal Glands coming out on the Warriors. That's going to buff the remaining Hormigaunt squad with Melee Synapse, which increases their damage and health, or maybe just health now, actually.
They keep changing it. But
yeah. Oh, yeah, it's just health now. They changed it before they received damage, now they just receive health. Meanwhile, Termagants receive damage from range Synapse with the Venom Brood, which is the anti-vehicle squad of the Tyranids.
Yeah. On the chase there with the Hormigons, we saw them go ahead and take out actually most of the members of one Guardian squad. They're down to 1 out of 5. They had 6 members that had the Warlock there, but the Hormigons managed to take them out on retreat. So again, we see Soom inflicting great attritional losses here on Aki, and Aki again, his requisition and his power his power actually is pretty decent, but his income is very low. And his requisition is incredibly low because he keeps having to replace all these units, reinforce all these squads. And Soom, though, has managed to tech to tier 3. And part of this is we go ahead and look at his map control, take a page of yesterday. Look at all these requisition points that Soom has, and look at his income is plus 359 per requisition.
Also, the fact that Aki's closest requisition points, other than the one he has captured right now, are matured fully for Soom. He's reaping huge rewards just for capturing those.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I personally feel like the one in the middle there is a little kind of more the natural node. The one, like, basically the only one that Aki has left. But, you know, it could definitely be, it could go either way. So we do see the Raveners in a little bit of trouble on the left side. Oh, the grenade spikes here might take them out. It is going to take out one squad of Raveners. The other squad is working its best to get out of there. But that is a huge loss for Soom. He had been doing so well, but losing that one Ravener squad, Raveners really are kind of one of those units that I feel are very effective as one squad, but when you get two squads of them working together, the synergy between the two squads together is just absolutely great, you know, and to kind of lose that is a bit of a big blow.
I do like what Aki did. He saw that the Gene Stealers had their ability popped, which allows them to move faster, and he just waited for a few seconds until they were right on top of him, and then used Fleet of Foot, so he got a speed bonus while the Gene Stealer's ability wore off.
Yeah, and he was careful about that too. Didn't let them get too close because there's this thing called charge bonus, and ooh, that Hive Tyrant is down to 1-0. It goes down, but what charge bonus effectively is when a melee unit gets close to a ranged unit, it will get a speed boost to basically allow the melee unit to catch up to it a little faster. So you gotta, as a ranged unit, you want to make sure that you don't let melee units get too close to you because then they'll incur charge and start moving about, I believe, like +2 additional speed, something like that.
Usually charged infantry are able to catch up to ranged infantry pretty well, even when the range are trying to kite, and get a few hits off and maybe kill the straggling model.
Yeah, so it's definitely something you want to avoid allowing the melee units to do whenever possible. So in the meantime, we have the Carnifex coming out, but in the meantime, that global nuke Tyrannoform goes down and takes out one Shuriken. It isn't going to get much else, but you know, that Shuriken may well have been worth it.
Again, I have another question now that I haven't really thought of before. If he hit retreat on that Shuriken, would the time it takes to unload still grant him speed bonuses? Because retreating units gain speed over time. It won't be moving when it's trying to unload, but would it still be gaining that speed bonus?
I
and
actually
would that have helped
think it
him?
has to de-set up. I don't think it gets a speed bonus for undoing that. I haven't really noticed. So the bigger kind of bonus that it gets, period, from that is it would take reduced damage from most things. Like, for example, if a Mana Core Barrage is coming in on your setup squad, just have it retreat, because you won't be able to move it in time, but you'll be able to retreat it in time. When I say retreat it in time, specifically the retreat bonus will decrease the damage that it takes from the Mana Core Barrage. So that would be like the significant thing there. I think it comes down more to that than it does so much as to the speed of getting out of there, you know?
Yeah. That's true. It's just something that I was wondering, because it's 1.5 seconds to de-set up, correct? Which is, I believe, quite enough time for that speed bonus to kick in. I was wondering if it triggered that speed bonus. Yeah. True that.
Remember, the speed bonus has to, for the retreat, the speed bonus has to ramp up as well, so it's much slower when you first retreat, and then it gets faster over time. So,
Yes.
I mean, basically, if you have a global nuke casted right on top of you in your setup squad, you should probably just hit retreat, because that's probably the only way you have any chance at all of surviving it. More likely, it's just dead. Because, I mean, you know, for 500 red on one setup squad, you know, that's a lot of global resource. That's a pretty big commitment. Setup squads typically don't cost that much. Now, we do see here that this is a game of victory points right now, though.
Yeah, with only 20 unless my UI is bugged, Soom has 24, and he really needs to hold at least 2 VPs at all times, otherwise he's going to incur a loss, VP drain. And Aki is sitting comfortably at 356. So even though Soom has the majority of the victory, the resource points right now, he literally just cannot spend all that resources enough to get a big enough army in time to try to get these VPs with only 10 now, and he's incurring a drain.
I mean, see here the Warp Spider Exarch on the top right side there, doing his best to prevent capping from Soom up there, and also just kind of, while he's capturing, managing to take out some Spore Mines, so that always helps out. And those delaying actions there delayed just long enough. We saw that Soom's high turn had almost managed to capture the bottom left victory point, but was not able to do it quite in time, which allowed Aki to pull this one out. But we did see, though, we look at force composition and we look at economy, we look at, Aki actually, his economy is getting much better by this point. But, you know, we look into most things, and, you know, Soom was on the cusp of turning this around, but he wasn't able to hold the victory points.
Yeah, and I mean, I will usually say resources are more important, but you should always try to have at least one victory point during the game. Just so he doesn't have a 3 VP drain on you, which can add up really quickly before you're even aware of how many victory points you actually are losing.
Yeah, and we saw that kind of all game Aki had done a pretty good job of controlling the victory points, and you know, again, you know, it's economy is generally more important, but you have to give a reasonable amount of importance, you know, a reasonable priority to victory points as well. So
yeah. Anyway, we do have game 2 up next. It's on Outer Reaches, Aki versus Soom. Yet again, if you guys recall, Soom played a different hero every game, a different Tyranid hero every game. So this game he's playing the Lictor Alpha, which is the stealthy Tyranid. He infiltrates his one of his starting abilities, and then he has Flesh Hook, which allows him. Again, it's one of those skills I was talking about that you can select the individual model, so it's very good for picking off squad leaders. What it does is it inflicts 100 to 200 piercing damage, and then pulls the target towards the Flesh Hook, towards the Lictor Alpha.
yeah, I believe it's somewhere around 175, or maybe a little bit more than that, because I know it does more damage than maybe it's somewhere around the damage that a Scout Sergeant has health-wise.
And it's very useful to cause a very quick power drain in Tier 1 if your opponent's gotten a Sergeant or a Squad Leader in Tier 1, which can delay his teching significantly.
Alright, so I think we're both in here at 5 seconds, and we've got, again, Aki is a Warp Spider Exarch, so I don't think we need an explanation of that. Aki being a little more consistent with his choices here. So in the bottom left, Soom with that Lictor Alpha, as Lokgar mentioned, and the bottom right, Aki as Warp Spider Exarch. So we good to go in 5?
Yep.
Alright. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And Outer Reaches is a great map for flanking. There's a lot of shot blocking walls in this map, and a lot of cover strewn around, a lot of green cover in the middle. Just a really good map to either try to flank with melee or try to entrench with range and try to respond quickly to wherever the ninja capping is going on. And then also, yet again, we see the requisition point is fairly close to the victory, to your headquarters, but it's still way out there. You can probably get a decap off in fairly quick order, in a quick time, enough that the enemy can't respond. And we went over this on a requisition day, that just decapping will hurt your opponent's economy quite a bit. And honestly, if it's your opponent's natural requisition, you want to try to decap it, but not necessarily try to recap it, because you might not even hold it off long enough for that extra time invested into capping that requisition point to pay off, where that force could be used somewhere else in the map, either fighting or capping another point.
And not even just to mention the time component, but you also have the just kind of, I don't even want to say like fear component, but the possibility that your ninja capping squad could be caught out by that point, kind of caught in an area with not so great support, right? And you know, you could lose models, get picked off, whatever, even possibly lose a squad. So certainly, if that happens, your opponent will just recap the point really quickly, and you won't get nearly enough requisition out of that to justify what just happened there.
And we saw that Flesh Hook go off a little while ago, instantly killing the Guardian model, which Flesh Hook is really good for killing Tier 1 models very quickly, unless they're Tactical Marines or Warrior Broods or some high HP low model squad.
And
but
even those, it's good because it allows you to drag them to where you want them, and you can set up the kill from there.
Correct. It's very, very good for dragging into melee, because a lot of the melee models will just go to the nearest target and start whacking at it. And if that's a squad leader, that's almost a guaranteed kill unless the enemy can respond fast enough. In many cases, he can't because of the initial damage of the flesh hook.
Yeah, which is quite significant, and it is one of the reasons why fighting Lictor Alpha in 1v1 for a lot of races is very, very tough.
And also, we see you can infiltrate and decapture a point as soon as you start recapturing, and however your infiltrate wears off. But we can see Soom using that to a great success to decap the victory point, and then he's just going to flesh hook and retreat away, causing a requisition drain and even more VP drain.
And so we can see that on the requisition point of view here, Soom is quite a fair bit ahead, but he doesn't have nearly as many units out as Aki does. Aki has a big portion of his tier 1.5 force out. Soom is just now getting his warrior brood out. This is partly because Soom is focused pretty heavily on upgrading his starting tier 1 units with those kind of tier 1.5 upgrades.
And we see how much damage the Warp Spider Exarch's taking from these Hormigons just from the charge leap he has, and a nice kinetic
great job there with the kinetic shot.
Save the Warp Spider Exarch. I believe a Gaunt was mid-leap when that happened, and the Warp Spider Exarch had one health, and I think that the leap does 4 damage each leap, which would have killed him, which was just amazing timing on Aki's part.
Yeah, it was just really good to just be sitting there with that Ranger and just have it ready, recognizing that his Warp Spider Exarch was in dire straits, and popping off that kinetic shot, just perfectly. So meanwhile, we've got a Barb Strangler Warrior Brood coming out for Soom here to go ahead and complement his forces. That's going to allow him to suppress the enemy units. It's kind of interesting. It's one of the few suppression-oriented units that is not a setup.
And it's basically a grenade projectile. It ignores cover, the damage, and it can fire over walls, which on this map is very useful. There are some locations where you can just keep your Barb Strangler Warrior Brood and have them lob shots over the wall and suppress the enemy infantry while they can't fire back. And Barb Strangler Warrior Broods are fairly decent in melee. You can always suppress a target and deal some damage in melee.
Yeah, it actually used to be that they were amazing in melee.
Yeah, they used to have a charge knockback, leap knockback. They used to fire while leaping. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, they used to be about as good as regular Warrior Broods in melee, and then have the Barb Strangler on top of it.
And this was before Warrior Broods even got their nerf to melee damage, too.
Yeah, so Relic got on top of that one, though.
Yeah, I kind of miss abusing that. That was very fun.
As an Orc player, I'm quite happy that it's gone.
3 Barb Stranglers, go, go, go.
Oh my gosh. I spent so much time banging my head against the wall against that because everything in the game must be beatable somehow. Nope.
Not 3 times Barb Strangler.
Not even just like 1 or 2, because Termagants are pretty... That was back when Termagant melee was really good too, so even if you managed to do everything right as an Orc and, you maybe like a melee heavy build, you would get in against the Termagants, and then they'd be doing all of this damage to your melee units, and you'd be like, ah!
Yeah, and it was just a fun time for Tyranids. But we see Soom going for, both players actually going for a very heavy tier 1 investment. Raveners with the Devour, Barb Strangler Warrior Broods themselves are at, I believe, 55 power.
Total, yeah.
Which is quite expensive, but that's also a suppression platform. Like I said, with all those benefits, they can move, they can fire over walls, and it's decent in melee. So well worth that cost, in my opinion, if you can bleed the enemy dry. And with all these tier 1.5 squads out, he can easily bleed the power through reinforcement costs.
Yeah, and actually that's something we've seen in both games here. The power bleed and just the general resource bleed in both tier 1s for both of these games so far has been huge. I mean, we watched Soom versus CC13 earlier, not Soom, Aki versus CC13 earlier today, and we saw like, what, 5 power total bleed from Aki, right? Just with 1 Ranger model going down, and then we saw 8 power bleed on the Assault Space Marine squad. That was it for all of tier 1. Here, though, we're seeing, like, a shuriken, an entire shuriken goes down. So, I believe that Lokgar has to step out here for a second, so I'm just going to take over a little bit of solo commentary here. So here we go, the Ravener Brood is up here by the forward power farm, but he's only got one model. He's got to get out of there if he wants to keep that alive. Remember, Raveners are very, very expensive, especially with Corrosive, with Devour. These Terminator guns going to try and get away from the suppression platform to allow the Barbed Strangler Warrior Brood to cover them. The one downside, though, to the Barbed Strangler Warrior Brood is that they're relatively short range. So they do get a lot of benefits over regular suppression squads, but they're pretty expensive. But they're real, you know, the short range prevents them from really going head-to-head with this Shuriken weapons platform when it's set up well. But then again, though, because the Barbed Strangler Warrior Brooders themselves don't have to set up, you know, they get some extra opportunity to flank and such. So meanwhile,
and I'm back. Sorry for that. But going back to the Barbed Stranglers really quickly, suppressing a Shuriken platform makes it so when it goes onto its reload period, it will fire. It will reload 20 times slower, I believe, is the actual modifier.
No, they fixed that bug. Journiel, big shout out to Journiel. Figured that out and tossed that data over to Relic. He's like, yo guys, these reload times are ending up to be ridiculous, especially this is back when big shooters were much more of an issue. So like if you like used aiming, what's that, on like a suppression platform, like you could use it for like 2-3 seconds, suppress it, and then stop it, and then just like walk up and like shoot us and just take it out. So Relic fixed that bug, and I believe like 2.3. Very nice use of Flush Hook there, by the way, to finish off a Guardian squad that was retreating.
Yeah, that's true. It was ridiculously high, but even still, when it's suppressed, there is a slight delay in when it can fire again, unlike normally, and that's when you can force melee with the Warrior Brood. Shoot another shot off, then force melee with the Warrior Brood, then it's tied up and suppressed. It won't really be able to kite you. You're dealing a massive amount of damage, and like is forced to retreat basically. And he tried doing that up top, but it retreated too quickly for it to be seen in action.
Yeah, I mean, basic point is that that mechanic is certainly still there. It's just not quite as over the top as it used to be.
Yeah, it used to also affect Barbed Strangler Warrior Brood significantly. I remember the bug was the cooldown was so high that I actually thought my Barbed Strangler Warrior Broods refused to fire until they were retreated and brought back onto the field. That's what I thought the bug was. But when actually it was just weapon cooldowns.
I think that Rangers actually, it took them like over a minute to fire again when they got suppressed because of that.
Reminiscing on funny bugs.
So in the meantime, though, we did see that Soom got a very nice Gen Bash in there, and to allow that, what he did actually is he used his Spore Mine call-in to just go ahead. He didn't even really do anything with the Spore Mines, right? He just had the call-in come in, and it forced Aki to back off, deal with the Spore Mines, and then kind of move back in to try and deal with everything else. But in the meantime, though, Soom was trying to chase after that Warp Spider XR, which barely got out alive. In the process, these dual Warp Spiders from Aki, which, by the way, he got via call-in, and then also via just building them, really do a huge number on Soom's force, taking out a Termagant and a Ravener squad, and doing quite a few metal loss to other, a bunch of other stuff here.
Also, during that engagement, going back to the Synapse giving Gone Sleep over cover, if they left over cover, I think they might have been able to get a few more hits off their Warp Spider Exarch and possibly kill him, because you saw them run through the cover. They had to move a little bit and go through the cover instead of leaping right over it.
Yeah. And on a side note, again, we see the Barbed Strangler Warrior Brood gets taken out by the Warp Spiders there. So these Warp Spiders for Aki just came out and just went boom, 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 dominated Soom really quickly there. Just taking out 3 squads in a very short period of time. But Soom does manage to get this Tyrant Guard out and to try and give himself some a little bit more durability on the field. Just kind of something to tank some shots here.
And Assault Jump, which is Deadly Jump, upgraded on the Lictor Alpha. It's an armor war gear. It gives him a little bit more health and the ability to leap through the air and knock back and deal damage to anything that he lands on, which is very useful to disrupt this Ranger and Shuriken setup that Aki has, as well as the Warp Spiders. Because as we notice, Aki is teleporting both of them in the same area at once, usually, which is just open to AoE. In combination, if the Barbed Strangler didn't die in combination with the Barbed Strangler, he could seriously counter these Warp Spiders.
And also, just on this map in general, kind of you mentioned at the beginning how you've got a lot of sort of like pathing blockers and stuff here, along with the heavy cover and whatnot. Deadly Jump is kind of nice for getting around those.
Yeah, he can jump from the middle all the way to Aki's natural power, or VP, which, you send in the gaunts around the front and then flank with the jumping and then hit the suppression squads.
So meanwhile, we have this Tyrant Guard just kind of guarding the top here in his little shell.
Which I thought was wonderful because he was able to basically stall by time and keep that top VP under his control.
Yeah, it was a really good prelude to allowing, especially because we can see Soom is going tier 3 here, so he wants to stall. And we got Spore Mines coming. Great Spore Mine call in here. Came right where the Warp Spiders jumped in, and he's going to kill quite a few Warp Spider models with this. Really bring Aki down a fair bit because of that.
Yeah, and also we saw the Warp Spider teleported right into Adrenal Gland Warrior Broods, which do have the charge knockback, and we saw him being chain knocked back by all 3 models, so he wasn't able to teleport when he wanted to, which can be very frustrating. So basically, Warrior Broods, good crowd control if you pull them back and then move them back to attack, because they have a lot of health, but not so much damage. They're mostly for synapse and tanking, and then with the added crowd control built into the charge, they can really be useful for your gaunts to tear up any sort of infantry.
So in the meantime, we've got Aki moving up to the center here. It's going to probably look to push that top victory point. Both players do seem to be, they've got their ninja capping forces, and we do see that the Warp Spider XR is partaking in that, along with the Guardian squad. But they do seem to be rather focused on this victory point, and actually the Warp Spiders are going to assault that Hormigaunt Brood first, as opposed to just chipping away at the Tyrant Guard. It looks like Soom is trying to hide that Hormigaunt Brood to kind of come in on those Warp Spiders the second that anything hit the Tyrant Guard. But oh my gosh, a Termagant just got shredded by those Warp Spiders.
Again, we see how useful cover is. They were just completely out of cover and torn to shreds before Soom could even hit the retreat button. That happens a lot late game when there are a lot of shooty forces out on the field. You need to be able to station your troops into cover. That way you have just that extra second to respond to any threat.
Even though it is much harder to get troops in cover in the late game because of, this is a modern game. There's destructible cover, destructible environments. There's just a lot less cover around because a lot of it's been destroyed, honestly.
Yeah, especially with a Tyrant Guard walking around. You can't always control a unit's pathing, obviously, to where you want it to be. He will just go right through cover that could be useful later on.
Well, I do my best when I, play as Chaos Lord. I spawn in, and it's not really a tournament game or anything, and it just kind of doesn't tell the enemy what hero I'm playing. I'll be like, oh, I'm going to be really cute. I'm going to go step around all the cover and not crush anything. So my opponent's going to look into the fog of war and go like, oh, there's no crush. That means he's not Chaos Lord. And I'm like, lol, actually, I'm Chaos Lord.
And we did see that knockback from the Adrenal Gland Warrior Brood allowed the Gaunts to get 2 or 3 model kills out that Warp Spider blob, which is very, very handy. Just that added crowd control that doesn't take any ability usage. It's passive and it's built into the unit.
And now we will see the Falcon come out here, and this should help deal with the Tyrant Guard, and it should also help put some pressure on those warriors. Aren't too much they're going to be able to do to the Falcon. Now these Rangers using some kinetic shot there to buy some time for the Falcon to come up and allow them to escape successfully.
However, the dual Lictor units, which are melee heavy, which deal, I believe, half their damage to vehicles, will make short work of this vehicle if it's caught off guard. Especially rear armor hits do double damage. So if you get any sort of light AV or heavy hard AV counter behind a vehicle, the vehicle will be brought down in a matter of seconds.
So a little interesting about the Tyrant Guard, for those who don't know, the Tyrant Guard usually is a super heavy infantry unit when it's up and about like this. When it's up and can attack, this is super heavy infantry. It's an armor type. We'll get into armor types and stuff later. Oh, by the way, this Falcon's getting blasted on by by the Lictor Alpha and 2 Lictors here. That's going to go down pretty easily. We see the deadly jump, or the jump going ahead in front of it, just to block its pathing and stuff. And now everything's caught in a bad spot here. We got melee knockback going all over the place. Warp Spiders finally get out of there. But ooh, just not a great sequence there for Aki. What I was saying there about the Tyrant Garb, usually when it's walking around, it's super heavy infantry, so normal attacks do a little bit to it, but generally you're looking at like Plasma as kind of the best stuff to use against it. Power melee. You don't need hard AV to take it down, I guess is the best way to put it. You don't need hard anti-vehicle. But when it goes into its shell, like it is right now, it becomes a vehicle. And so then you actually need anti-vehicle to take it down. We do see that the Warp Spider Exarch here has power blades, which are a melee heavy piece of war gear.
And also the Tyrant Guard in its shell has amazing HP recovery. Its regeneration rate goes through the roof, and it's very hard to take down without dedicated anti-vehicles units.
It basically,
Light AV just won't cut it. Even though they'll still be doing damage, he can just regenerate through all of it.
Yeah, you basically need to devote a significant amount of your force to just sitting there and taking it out. And obviously this is kind of why Soom is, pretty content to just pop this Tyrant Guard up here. He can put it in the shell, and, he can just kind of have it sit there like he's... Right, there he goes. I mean, even though it's full health, he's not really intending to recover anything. These Warp Spiders are going to, can pop in, they can attack it, and they're not going to do much to the shell. And then, if he needs to defend the victory point, he just pops out of his shell and kaboom. It's a really nice deterrent.
And we see the triple lictors with the deadly jump, like, Warp Spiders, no matter where they teleport, they're going to be knocked down and destroyed.
We do see they are going to try and get this one lictor on retreat, but he should be fine, and he is. Actually, the Rangers are in a little bit of trouble here now. Should probably mention that actually the triple flesh hook possibility here is a huge danger for those Rangers.
And squads on retreat in general, like a Guardian squad, that would be 3 members down within the blink of an eye if microed properly.
Yeah. And here we have another leap coming in. That one actually didn't do...
to hit a retreat right at the right moment. Aki does a good job of doing that generally, hitting retreat right when a squad will be knocked down, so they won't get the knockdown.
And meanwhile, Aki has 3 Warp Spiders now, but there's a Carnifex on the field, specifically a Barb Strangler Carnifex.
Which is the appropriate counter.
Yeah, very appropriate. These Warp Spiders really, at this point, maybe are going to try and hope that they can hold map control like they did last game, and just kind of get that, like, oh, victory point win, but I don't think Soom's going to let that happen twice.
Especially not with 2 vehicles out on the field guarding 2 different VPs. And the Lictor hit squad rolling around.
Yeah, those things are just absolutely deadly, and, not too expensive for a tier 3 unit, actually. But then again, though, they are only 1 model, so if you lose it, you've got to buy the whole thing again.
And they are a fairly expensive tier 3 unit.
Well, they're 350 requisition and 50 power, I think. So that's
oh, and he hasn't even upgraded them. That's interesting.
Yeah, and that is GG. Actually, I think, was that the first time that Aki had seen the Carnifex?
I think so. Yeah, the Carnifex was just camped out by the VP.
Yeah, I hadn't even noticed that the first time that he may not have seen the Carnifex until that point in time, but yeah, that would probably explain the GG timings. They didn't really take any, key losses at that particular point, right? So yeah, guys, if anyone has any questions, feel free to let us know. We got about like an extra 11 minutes here to fill, so if you have questions on power, requisition, anything at all, if you have questions of these games, questions on what's coming up, I can sit here and pitch what we're doing on Friday, what we're doing next week, all sorts of awesome stuff. Okay, well, let me talk about Friday, actually, because I've kind of just pretty close to finalizing the plans for Friday. So Friday we're going to have a King of the Hill mini tournament thing going on. What is this game? This is Dawn of War 2 Retribution. I think Retribution is important to put at the end now because it ditched games for Windows Live, Anything before that you look at.
My apologies. If you buy Dawn of War 2 or Dawn of War 2 Chaos Rising, you will not be able to play multiplayer with Owners of Retribution. Like the other two expansions, the vanilla game and the other expansion Chaos Rising could work together online. However, they switched from Game for Windows Live to Steam. So when you buy Retribution for $30, you get all 6 races. When usually Relic expansions only had 1 or 2 races, you get all 6 races for $30. You get to play all of their 6 campaigns and all 6 in multiplayer, and get all the new units.
And
so
Last Stand.
And Last Stand, which is a hero survival arcade mode.
It's kind of like, you know, a custom like Warcraft 3 map almost, except it's done really well. So
yeah, and you know, you get, I believe, 6 heroes, all with different war gear and roles that change with what war gear you unlock, and it's just a lot of fun. But for $30, definitely a good buy.
Yeah, the only thing you don't get are the vanilla Dawn of War 2 campaigns, and well, the one campaign that comes with that. Very long campaign though. Depends on, you know, it's actually pretty different from the Chaos Rising and Retribution ones, and the Chaos Rising campaign. All 3 expansions, or not expansionable. You know, the vanilla game, Chaos Rising, and Retribution have kind of different campaigns. They kind of switch it up each time. So if you're into single player, it may be worthwhile. But for multiplayer, Retribution is where it's at. If you were looking for any of this, the question about Marine gameplay, you mean Space Marine? I hope.
Or Chaos Space Marines, or possibly even Imperial Guard.
Actually, I was thinking he could possibly have meant StarCraft Space Marines.
Oh, well, oh, right.
This is iCup.
The amount of time it takes to make a Space Marine, let's see, how many years? Probably like 40, 50 years. The amount of time it takes to make a Terra Marine, 10 seconds. There's something wrong there.
Yeah, Space Marines. Yeah, we actually be featured, earlier in the cast, you got to see Aki play CC13. We showcased that same game the previous day, I believe. Not so sure how much other Space Marine stuff we've had on, but yeah, we'll definitely have Space Marine stuff on. We'll get more into each of the races too. Actually, I haven't talked to you about this, Lokgar, but I know actually we may be able to pull some experts on from these races actually, and have them do some casts with us, which might be pretty cool too.
That would be perfectly fine with me. If anyone's hearing guitar in my microphone, that's because my neighbor is playing very loudly. My bad, I apologize.
Now, to answer the question from Nanaxuma, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but he's asking, he's started playing Dawn of War 2 after playing some StarCraft 2 Master League. He wants to know if there's like any kind of nice wiki or anything else to read for counters and whatnot. You know, it's kind of one of the things that the Dawn of War 2 community is starting to try and work on. There's kind of a growing awareness of it. The first and best place to go for that, well, there are 2 really good places to go to start with. Dawn of War 2 info, then to get there you just go dow2 info, so dow2.info. That is the website name. If you put that in your browser bar, that will take you there. So if you go there, you're going to get a pretty good outline of all the stats and everything that are in the game, so you can go over and look at the unit stats and the weapon types, and you can see actually what like damage types do and stuff like that. So you can get a good feel for stuff. They just switched over to doing Retribution stuff. So not everything is up there and well organized yet, but you can start browsing around there. There's some really good stuff in there. The other great place to go is gamereplays.org/Dawn of War 2. That's the Dawn of War 2 section of gamereplays.org. Game Replays is one of the I'd probably say bigger sites for the Dawn of War 2 community at the moment. We've got a pretty good selection of strategy specialists working on a lot of guides for Retribution at the moment. I'm actually the admin there, so I can pitch it a little more so than most, but no, I would be pitching it even if I wasn't admin there. It's a really great place to go. The forums are really helpful and informative, even if it's a little more trollsy at times. Not trollsy, but I don't know. I mean, I kind of anyway. So says me you have to go, Lokgar. I'm not sure what that means, but I guess it means you won't be talking at the moment. So anyway. Any other questions here? So yeah, gamereplays.org/Dawn of War 2, the Dawn of War 2 sections of Game Replays. Be sure to check out the forums there and the guides that are up there. Some of the guides are a little old, but we're working on refreshing all of those. And then dow2 info. dow2.info. Two great places to start out with. How hard is Dawn of War 2 to get into? It is. It's a little deceptive because it seems like a bit of a simple game. You don't control a ton of squads, right? Like if we look at like the end of this game here now, right? We've got like Soom has one hero, and then about 6 squads, I think. But you know, each of those squads, it's kind of, you know, even though there's not a lot of units, each of your units you tend to be multitasking with. You really have to micro them incredibly well to be successful. So the one nice thing though is that all the macro components are pretty well streamlined, so you only have one base structure that you build from. All of your resources, like you don't have to micromanage workers or anything, but you do have, you know, there is still that component there. We kind of spent a lot of time today talking about power. We spent a ton of time yesterday talking about requisition. So we're built in a lot of complexity and nice and streamlined. And so let's see, Retribution Elder case. Oh, okay, so they still have the race packs up actually after. I thought those were pre-order only. Okay, just to kind of clarify what the Retribution race packs and stuff are. Those have nothing to do with multiplayer. They're all completely like single player stuff. Basically, they're like war gear sets in the campaign. If for those of you guys that don't know, the way the campaign works is that it's kind of like a hybrid between an RTS and an RPG. I know that, you know, Blizzard said they did that with Warcraft 3 kind of, but Relic really went out and did that a lot more with Dawn of War 2. So basically you have like 4 heroes, and they're persistent throughout the campaign. They level up persistently, and you get, you know, you earn war gear that you can equip into slots and stuff. So what those race packs are is that they give you like extra bonus war gear for that race. I'm telling you guys now that war gear is really overpowered, and because they added some unit building into the campaigns for this go round, the whole thing is a little bit easier. So I would say those packs probably aren't the most important things for your purchasing consideration. You may even want to just like not equip the war gear if you want a harder experience, you know, harder gameplay experience or something. But that's what those are. So, you know, for multiplayer, those race packs don't matter. It's just for single player, you know, whatever race you want to pick. And/or I don't know if they're still distributing the collector's edition, but that has all of them. And/or you can get whatever race pack you want, and they have DLC for all the other ones. They're only like 99 cents per race pack. Again, though, all of the multiplayer races, no matter what version you get, you will get any Retribution version, that is. You get all the you get all of them, all the multiplayer races. So, Tyranids, Eldar, Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, Orcs, and Imperial Guard now are the newest one. Let's see, anything else in here? Yep, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And I'm going to go ahead and, I started telling you guys about what we're doing this Friday. I'm going to finish that off. And, hi guys. Anyway, so this Friday, we're going to be having a King of the Hill tournament. We're going to be, the participants of the King of the Hill tournament, again, the times are going to be normal 5:30 to 7 p.m. So the participants are going to be actually Game Replay staff members from the Dawn of War 2 section. Right now, I believe we have a semi-finalized list. El Alcazar, Jameis McGamus, Ice JT, and Paranoid Kami, who is not related to the Dawn of War 2 live Kami, are going to be participating in that. So that should be really good. An hour and a half of great, really high-level play from some people who are writing your guides and stuff on game replays, and you know, you're going to get a chance to go ahead and see them go head-to-head and play, and also one of the guys moderating your posts too, so maybe give you some stuff there. But so anything else from you guys? Next week Lokgar is going to be absent, so Rilkin and I are going to be casting a week-long mini round-robin tournament. We're still working on finalizing all the participants for that, so I won't give you any list for that now, but we got 3 of the 4. So that's what's coming up. So alright, I think that seems to be all for today. Thank you everybody for tuning in. This has been the 4th Dawn of War 2 Daily, and this is 5-Star General, aka Turnip 16. and I am signing off, and signing off for Lord Lokgar as well, because he seems to have had to skip out a little early. So again, guys, thank you for tuning in. We will see you on Friday for the King of the Hill.